Seo Junho counted everything. It was a habit born from trauma, forged in the blood of his childhood, and polished into a weapon over 18 years of running Seoul's most feared criminal organization. He counted steps, 47 from the elevator to his usual table at Café Lumière. He counted heartbeats. His resting rate was 52, dangerously low for a man who'd killed 31 people. He counted the seconds it took for his enemies to realize they'd made a fatal mistake, average 3.7. But today, for the first time in years, Seo Junho was counting something new, bruises. The waitress had 3 of them visible, one on her left wrist, partially hidden by a thin silver bracelet, one on her collarbone peeking above the crisp white collar of her uniform, and one on her jaw, concealed beneath foundation that was slightly too light for her deep brown skin. 3 bruises, 3 different stages of healing, 3 pieces of evidence that told a story Junho knew by heart, because he'd seen those same bruises on his mother's face every morning for 10 years. "Your usual, Mr. Seo." The waitress's voice was soft, melodic, with an accent he couldn't quite place. African, certainly. Nigerian, if he had to guess. The British colonial influence was there, softened by something more lyrical, Americano, black, no sugar. He said the same thing every day. Had been saying it for 3 years, ever since Café Lumière had become his unofficial office for legitimate meetings. But today, for the first time, he actually looked at the woman taking his order. She was beautiful, the kind of beauty that didn't announce itself, that crept up on you slowly and then refused to leave. Deep brown skin that seemed to glow even under the cafe's muted lighting. Large eyes the color of rich coffee, framed by long lashes. Natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, a few coils escaping to frame her face. Full lips pressed together in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And those bruises. Those goddamn bruises. "That one is new," Junho said, gesturing toward her wrist. The waitress, her name tag said Dinma, went still. Her smile froze. Her eyes, which had been carefully empty, suddenly filled with fear. "I'm sorry?" Her voice was steady, but he could see her pulse jumping in her throat. Counting, 88 beats per minute, elevated, fight or flight response kicking in. "The bruise on your wrist, it wasn't there yesterday." Junho kept his voice neutral, observational, like he was discussing the weather. "The one on your jaw is about a week old, collarbone, maybe 4 days, but the wrist, that's fresh. Last night, I'd guess." The bracelet jingled softly, cheap metal, the kind sold at street markets. Not something she'd chosen, something given to her probably, to cover evidence. "I'm clumsy," she said. The lie was smooth, practiced. She'd told it before, many times. "I fell. I know what grab marks look like, and I know—" He paused, something dangerous flickering in his dark eyes. "I know what a woman looks like when she's been beaten by someone who claims to love her. This is none of your business." Something that had been frozen solid since he was 10 years old and watched his father's fists connect with his mother's face for the last time. "Take the order," he said quietly. "Bring the coffee, and when your shift ends, you're going to tell me everything, or I'm going to find out myself. And trust me," his smile was cold, "you'd rather tell me." In Enugu, she'd learned to disappear into the background when her stepfather's temper flared. At university in Lagos, she'd become a ghost, present enough to excel in her pre-med courses, absent enough to avoid the attention of men who saw her beauty as an invitation. And in Seoul, trapped in an apartment with a man who'd promised her the world and delivered a prison, she'd perfected the art of not being seen, of moving silently, of absorbing blows without making sounds that might disturb the neighbors. But the man at table 7, Mr. Seo, the other waitresses called him in hushed, frightened whispers, had seen through all of it in 30 seconds. Dinma, Soo-yeon, the head waitress, grabbed her arm as she walked toward the kitchen. "What did you say to him? What did you do? Do you know who that is? That's Seo Junho, the Seo Junho. He owns half of Gangnam, the legal half and the other half." The same order he'd placed every day for 3 years. She knew because she remembered everything, every order, every face, every detail. It was a gift that had gotten her through medical school, A curse that meant she could never forget the first time Taejun's open palm had become a closed fist. She carried the coffee to table 7 with steady hands and a steady heart. She would not show fear. She would not show weakness. She had survived too much to break now. "Your Americano, sir." Almost honest. She sat. "Your name is Chidinma Eze," Junho said. "Nigerian. Igbo, specifically. I can hear it in your accent. You've been working here for 8 months. Before that, you were a student at Seoul National University, but you dropped out 4 months ago. No official reason given. But I didn't know about the bruises until today. I didn't look closely enough. That was my mistake." She saw it then, behind the cold exterior, behind the tailored Xenia suit and the reputation for ruthlessness. A boy who had watched his mother die, just like she had. "I was 8, Dinma heard herself say. When my stepfather," she couldn't finish. Couldn't say the words out loud in this bright, beautiful cafe surrounded by people drinking expensive coffee and pretending the world was kind. "I was 10. Junho's hand moved toward hers on the table, then stopped, pulled back, like he'd forgotten how to offer comfort. "I killed him, my father, when I was 16, to protect my sister." "Who is hurting you?" "Said he'd pay for my education? Said he loved me?" I've suspected for years that his import-export business involves more than electronics and textiles, but I've never had proof. She thought of the other women in Taejun's life, the ones who came to the apartment sometimes, the ones with dead eyes and fading bruises who spoke languages she didn't understand. She'd thought they were business associates, friends, family. That's not... He wouldn't... The number Taejun recited every time she tried to leave, every time she mentioned going home, every time she dared to dream of freedom. 50 million won, she whispered. For the plane ticket, for the tuition, for the apartment, the food, the clothes. He says I owe him 50 million won. The tuition was supposed to be free, the scholarship. You're his prisoner. My shift, I have to finish my shift and then I have to go back or And I am telling you, Chidinma Eze, that Kwon Taejun cannot touch you if you are under my protection. And for 3 years I've been counting the women who work in this cafe without really seeing them. This man was a killer, a crime boss, everything she'd been taught to avoid. But his touch was gentle, his eyes were haunted. And for the first time in 2 years, someone was offering her a choice instead of an order. I can't just leave, she said. He has my passport, my documents, everything. Your people could get hurt. Okay, when this is over, you walk away. Free and clear, no debts, no obligations, just your life, returned to you. But nothing about this moment was normal. Nothing about this conversation was ordinary. Chidinma Eze, trapped and broken and desperate, had just made a deal with one of Seoul's most dangerous men, and somehow, impossibly, she felt safer than she had in years. When does your shift end? Junho asked. 6 o'clock. Don't contact him. Just walk out the front door, get in the car, and let me handle the rest. And when he's lost everything, when he's desperate and alone and terrified, I'm going to show him exactly what happens to men who hurt women in my city. If anything happens before 6, if he contacts you, if you feel unsafe for even a moment, call this number. Someone will come. Turned back, Chidinma, with interest. Her tips were still in her pocket, and her phone, the phone Taejun used to track her location, was in a trash can 3 blocks away. The driver, a massive man with kind eyes and a scar across his throat, opened the back door without a word. Miss Eze, he said. His Korean was formal, respectful. Mr. SEO is expecting you. That she would ride away from her prison, settle into a new life, and never see Kwon Taejun again. Then her phone rang. Not the phone in the trash can. A different phone, buried in her coat pocket, one she'd forgotten existed. The backup phone. The one Taejun had given her for emergencies and she'd never used. The one he could track. Answer it, the driver said quietly, watching her in the rearview mirror. With shaking hands, Dinma accepted the call. Where are you? Taejun's voice was ice, controlled. The voice he used right before the violence started. I'm on my way home. Did you think I wouldn't know the moment you got into a car that wasn't mine? 2 years of silence. 2 years of obedience, 2 years of swallowed screams, and suddenly she couldn't do it anymore. What did you say? No legal status, no family in this country. If you don't come back, I'll report you as an illegal immigrant. I'll have you deported, and then I'll make sure everyone in Enugu knows what kind of woman you really are. Dinma stared at the phone in her hand, watching it shake with the tremors she couldn't control. Miss Ease. The driver's voice was calm. Mr. SEO anticipated this possibility. He asked me to tell you, don't worry, everything is under control. It was not a reassuring expression. Because Mr. CEO has already sent 12 men to Kwon Tae-jun's apartment, and another 8 to his office, and 6 to his mother's house in Busan. Tae-jun's men found her first. They came out of nowhere. 2 black SUVs that appeared behind the Mercedes, then beside it, then in front, boxing them in on the highway. The driver cursed in Korean and reached for something under his seat. Get down, he ordered. Dinma dove for the floor just as the first bullet shattered the rear window. Glass exploded everywhere. She felt shards slice her arms, her back, her face. The driver was returning fire now. One hand on the wheel, one hand holding a pistol that seemed too large to be real. Hold on. They're still coming, the driver said, almost conversationally. 3 vehicles now. He must really want you back. Lost track of everything except the sound of gunfire and the smell of burning rubber. Then, suddenly, they stopped. The Mercedes had pulled into a warehouse district, abandoned buildings, empty lots, darkness broken only by the occasional security light. The SUVs skidded to a halt behind them. Stay in the car, the driver said. He stepped out, hands raised, pistol nowhere to be seen. Dinma watched through the cracked window as 8 men emerged from the SUVs, all armed, all pointing their weapons at the driver. Where is she? One of them demanded. In the car, but I wouldn't. That the entire car chase had been a trap, designed to draw Tae-jun's men into a kill zone. But in the moment, all she knew was chaos. Gunfire from everywhere at once. Men screaming, bodies falling, the driver yanking her out of the Mercedes and throwing her behind a concrete barrier while bullets flew overhead. Stay down, he shouted. Don't move. It was over in less than 2 minutes. When the silence came, it was more terrifying than the gunfire. Dinma waited, heart pounding, too afraid to look. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming toward her. Chidinma, are you hurt? He asked. Dinma looked at herself. Glass cuts on her arms, bruises from being thrown around the car, but nothing serious, nothing fatal. I don't think so. How many? She asked quietly. How many what? I'll forgive you. I always forgive you. Thought about what forgiveness had looked like for the past 2 years. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet. Junho's eyes were dark, unreadable. This was just the first battle. Tae-jun is still out there, and he's going to be very, very angry. Dinma had heard stories about this place, the fortress where Seoul's most dangerous man lived in solitary luxury. She hadn't expected it to feel like a home. This will be your room, Junho said, opening a door on the 3rd floor. Connected bathroom, walk-in closet. The windows are bulletproof, but the view is nice. A sitting area with comfortable chairs. A desk by the window, overlooking gardens that somehow managed to be green even in late autumn. And on the bed, a first aid kit, a tray of food, and a set of clean clothes in her size. How did you know? She gestured at the clothes. I had people check the employee records at the cafe. Junho's voice was matter-of-fact. Your sizing information was in your file. Thorough. And I don't want to be alone. This one's deep, he murmured, examining a cut on her forearm. It might scar. Every wound. Junho's expression didn't change as he examined each wound, but something in his eyes went cold. Calculating. The look of a man cataloging information for future use. 17, he said finally. What? I stopped counting after the first year. Proportional to what he's done to you and every other woman he's hurt. You know his habits, his routines, his associates. You know things that even my informants don't know. Junho's thumb traced over her knuckles, a gesture that should have been soothing but felt electric. You're not just a victim, Chidinma. You're a witness, and witnesses have power. I don't want to be a victim anymore, she said quietly. Then don't be one. He released her hand, returned to the first aid kit, continued treating her wounds. Be a warrior instead. To protect your sister. She died when I was 10 years old, beaten to death while I hid in a closet with my sister, too afraid to move. I listened to her die, Chidinma. Listened to every scream, every impact, every moment of her last night on earth. That I would find men like my father, men who hurt and abuse and destroy, and I would remove them from the world. Why I care about a waitress I barely know. He didn't turn around. The truth is, I don't know. I've saved dozens of women over the years, helped them escape, given them money and new identities, and sent them on their way. Dinma sat alone in the enormous room, surrounded by luxury she'd never asked for, protected by a man she barely knew, and tried to make sense of what was happening. She should be afraid. She was in the home of a killer, a crime boss, a man who'd just admitted to murdering his own father, but all she felt was safe. And that terrified her more than anything Taejun had ever done. She woke to screaming. Her own screaming. Raw animal sounds that tore from her throat as she fought against phantom hands, phantom fists, phantom violence that existed only in her dreams. The door burst open. Junho was there, gun drawn, eyes scanning for threats. What is it? What's wrong? You're safe. You're here. He can't reach you. But not at me. She was calming down now, the nightmare receding. You're angry at him. Because no one enters this compound without my permission, and Kwon Taejun definitely doesn't have my permission. Some days I can't turn it off. Can't stop counting. Can't stop seeing danger everywhere. And every time she looks at me, she sees the brother who broke something that can never be fixed. Tomorrow will be difficult. Why? Good night, Junho. 3 days passed in Junho's compound like a fever dream. Dinma had never experienced anything like it. The quiet, the space, the complete absence of fear. Dr. Yuna had examined her thoroughly, documenting injuries that told the story of 18 months of systematic abuse. These ribs were broken at least twice, Yuna said softly, reading an X-ray, and healed wrong. You should have been hospitalized. According to the guards who brought her meals, he was handling business. She didn't ask what that meant, but she thought about him constantly. The way he'd held her in the car, the way he'd counted her tears, the way violence had seemed to flow through him as naturally as breathing, and then stopped the moment she was safe. What kind of man was that? A knock at the door. Come in. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually immaculate suit rumpled, but his expression softened when he saw her. You're looking better, he said. Yuna says your fever broke last night. What situation? I'm nobody. You don't need the details. Some are dead, some are... Junho's jaw tightened. Missing. She stayed with my father even when he was killing her, and I did the same thing. I'm just like her, who had held her like she was precious while covered in someone else's blood. Why are you helping me? She asked. What do you get out of this? I run a criminal empire built on protection money and fear. Normal stopped applying to me a long time ago. He glanced at the screen, and his expression transformed from soft to stone in an instant. He's here. Not when everything she'd been running from was standing at the gate, demanding her back like she was stolen property. She crept through the compound, following the sound of voices until she reached a gallery overlooking the main courtyard. From there, she could see everything without being seen. Kwon Taejun stood at the center of a semicircle of armed men. He looked the same as always, handsome in a cold way, expensive suit, hair perfectly styled. The face she'd once thought was gentle, before she learned what lived behind it. Across from him, Junho stood alone. No guards, no weapons visible, just him and that terrible stillness. You have something that belongs to me, Taejun said, his voice carried in the quiet courtyard. I have a guest who chose to stay here voluntarily. That makes her my property until the debt is paid. You're trespassing. You don't have the authority, and animals that wander into my territory get put down. She just happens to be the one who made me remember why I built this empire in the first place. I wonder which way that calculation goes. Because by the end of the month, your operation will be dismantled, your assets will be seized, and you, personally, will be dealt with. But his voice had lost its certainty. I'm counting on it. I needed to see. She turned to face him. You just declared war on a human trafficking ring. For me. A man I barely know just painted a target on his back because I served him coffee with a bruise. How do you know that? A thing to be used and discarded. And then you looked at me, really looked, and saw what no one else bothered to see. Do you have any idea what that feels like? She saw it happen, the careful walls crumbling, the mask falling away. What was left was raw, wounded, desperately afraid. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I don't know how to be what you need. That sounds better than being broken alone. In front of everyone who ever worked for him. It's not a problem. I counted. It means we're winning. You're the symbol of his failure now, and you're the only person who's ever offered me a different path. About all the violence she'd witnessed and survived and somehow kept surviving. Maybe, she said, or maybe I'm just finally becoming who I was always supposed to be. Within a week, 3 more women had come forward. Then 7. Then 12. The police, initially skeptical, couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. Identical stories of false promises, stolen documents, manufactured debt, systematic abuse. Kwon Tae-jun was named as the primary suspect in what media was calling the largest human trafficking case in Korean history. And Dinma watched it all unfold from the safety of Junho's compound, feeling like she was watching her own nightmare being dissected on national television. You should eat something. I'm not hungry. A feeling he's waiting to pass? Everyone knew it, but no one did anything because he was powerful, connected, useful. Her voice hardened. He beat our mother for 12 years, hospitalized her 4 times, and every time she went back to him because she thought she had no choice. A fall down the stairs. Or maybe it finally fixed itself. I've never been sure which. He thinks he's a monster, she said quietly. He thinks he's his father. Yuna's voice was sad. He's terrified that the violence inside him is the same violence that destroyed our family. That if he lets himself love someone, he'll hurt them the way our father hurt our mother. Someone who understands violence, who isn't afraid of it, who can see him clearly and still choose to stay. In case you wanted to know, you found me. 47. Because everyone I've ever loved has been hurt. Because you came to me broken and healing and trusting, and I'm terrified that I'll be the one to break you worse. I've spent my entire life protecting Yuna, protecting the people in my territory, protecting everyone except myself. To count the freckles on your shoulders instead of counting threats and exits. His voice dropped. To be someone worth loving instead of someone worth fearing. He'd been beating her for years, and one day he went too far, and I hid in the closet while she screamed for help that never came. Like the only option. And you're not one of them. She held his gaze. You're a man who's spent 18 years trying to make up for something that was never his fault. Who's so afraid of becoming what he hates that he won't let himself have what he needs. Love? What mattered was the way he held her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever touched. The way his thumbs traced her cheekbones. The way his breath shook when they finally broke apart. 12, he whispered. What? But now I'm counting reasons to stay instead of reasons to run. I'm just asking for now, for tonight, for the chance to see if this could be something. Then, 51. About the counting. How it had started as a way to cope with trauma and become something he couldn't stop. About Yuna, who was his only family and his only weakness. About the night he'd killed his father and the way it had felt like both murder and salvation. And somewhere in the hours before sunrise, they stopped being strangers bound by circumstance and became something else. Something that had no name yet. Something fragile and fierce and terrifying in the best way. We need to talk about Tae-jun, Junho finally said as the sky began to lighten. Reality crashed back in. What about him? And it's going to be soon. At least this time I won't be alone. And it makes me want to protect you even more fiercely. Yes? Or maybe we're going to burn everything down together. 3 weeks of learning each other. The way Junho counted his steps when he was stressed. The way Dinma hummed Nigerian folk songs while she photographed the garden. Yuna had given her a camera. Said everyone needed a way to process trauma. 3 weeks of falling deeper into something neither of them named. And then Tae-jun made his move. It started with a text message to Dinma's old phone. The one she'd left at the cafe. The one Junho's people had retrieved and been monitoring. I know where you are. I know who you're with, and I know exactly how to take everything from both of you. Attached. A photograph of Yuna leaving Seoul National University Hospital after her shift. Dinma showed Junho immediately. His face went pale, then hard, then terrifyingly blank. He wouldn't, but his voice said he knew better. He would. Dinma felt sick. That's what men like him do. They find what you love and they destroy it. He's threatened you specifically to get to me. We end this tonight. Point and shoot, you've done it before, you can do it again. Every politician who'd rather see trafficking networks destroyed than exposed. Junho's smile was savage. When he walks into that warehouse, he's walking into a coordinated operation between my people, the Seoul police, and Interpol. The survivor who refused to stay silent. The reason this entire operation is possible. It absolutely is. Maybe 20 of them. Less than half of what he'd had before the investigation began. He looked terrible. Weight lost. Shadows under his eyes. A desperate edge to his usually polished appearance. Good. He deserved to suffer. Chidinma? He said her name like he owned it, like he still owned her. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? And you repay me by running to the first rich man who offers protection? Surrender? He laughed, but it sounded hollow. To what? The police who've been in my pocket for years? The prosecutors who can be bought? Your boyfriend's protection racket? I'll wait. I've never killed anyone, Taejun, but for you, I'm willing to start. Do you know what kind of rage builds up when you can't fight back? Junho's men and police officers and Interpol agents flooding the space, systematically disarming Taejun's people with brutal efficiency. In the confusion, Taejun made one last desperate move. He grabbed a gun from a fallen man, turned it on Dinma. She didn't think, didn't hesitate, just fired. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. His own shot went wide, shattering a window above her head. And then Junho was there, appearing out of nowhere, putting himself between Dinma and the wounded Taejun, his own weapon drawn. Don't, Junho said coldly. Don't give me an excuse. I'm going to make sure every inmate knows exactly what you did, what you are, and I'm going to visit once a year just to see what's left of you. Is that normal? Death would have been mercy. Statements to police, interviews with Interpol, medical examinations, legal consultations, hours of paperwork and questions, and recounting the worst 18 months of her life over and over again. But through all of it, Junho was there, not hovering, not controlling, just present, counting exits when she couldn't, squeezing her hand when the questions got too hard, being exactly what she needed him to be. At 4 a.m, they finally returned to the compound. Yuna was waiting with tea and worried expressions and fierce hugs. It's done, Junho said. It's really done. Because you were brave enough to stand up and say enough. Not just externally, the threat eliminated, the nightmare ended, the future suddenly possible, but internally, something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't a victim anymore, wasn't a survivor exactly either. She was something new. Something that had been forged in fire and emerged stronger than before. What are you thinking? Junho asked quietly. That I need to go back to school. The answer surprised her. I was studying medicine before Taejun. Before everything, I was going to be a doctor. It's making up for stolen time. He took her hand. You lost 18 months to a monster. Let me help you get it back. You taught me that counting can be for beautiful things too. Not just threats and exits and deaths, but heartbeats, reasons to stay, ways to love. You made me remember what my mother used to say, that violence should only ever be in service of protection, never control. I forgot that somewhere along the way. You helped me remember. The future was beginning, and she was ready to meet it head-on. 1 year later, the cafe looked different now. Café Lumière had been renovated. New paint, new furniture, a small plaque by the door that read, "In partnership with the SEO Foundation for Survivors of Trafficking." The owner, Mrs. Park, had been horrified to learn what had happened to her former waitress. She'd insisted on being part of the solution. Dinma stood outside, looking at the building where her nightmare had begun, and somehow ended up becoming something else entirely. Ready? I'm ready. She took a breath. It's just strange. Coming back here. Exactly as it had been 18 months ago when Dinma had served coffee with bruises and prayed no one would notice. Now, people noticed her immediately, because her face had been in the news, because her testimony had helped convict 47 people across 3 countries, because she'd become somehow a symbol of survival. Dr. Ease, a young woman, approached, Nigerian, based on her accent, maybe 19 or 20. "I'm sorry to bother you. I saw you come in but I saw you on television and you looked so strong and I thought, if she can do it, maybe I can too. And you did it, you're free." "That's the 47th person who's recognized you this month," Junho said quietly. "I've been counting. Let's get your coffee." "They're fast-tracking me to clinical rotations because of my experience with trauma patients." She'd gone from a trapped, broken waitress to a medical student with a foundation that bore her advocacy and a man who loved her without trying to own her. "I've been thinking," she said slowly. "About what? What we want this to be. Because when I'm with you, I feel like the person I was always supposed to be. Strong, capable, loved. I'd count every day until you were ready, every hour, every heartbeat. And I'd count 362 more years if that's what you needed. But who's keeping track?" Dinma led Junho through the rows of headstones until they reached a simple marker near the old pine trees. She'd had it placed there 3 months ago, but hadn't found the courage to visit until now. "In memory of Ngozi Eze, 1970, 2007, beloved mother, her courage lives in her daughter. I always wanted to give her somewhere better, somewhere peaceful. About her cooking, the way she'd sing hymns while preparing dinner. About her strength, how she'd hidden money in the walls for years so Dinma could go to school, knowing her husband would never allow it openly. About the night she died. The sounds from the kitchen, the silence afterward. The way 8-year-old Chidinma had crawled out of the closet to find her father gone, and her mother broken beyond repair. I used to blame myself," Dinma admitted, "for not saving her, for being too small and scared to help. The way you protect other women now, give them the voice she never had. That's her legacy living through you." Actually very accurate. He's complicated and damaged and counts everything obsessively. But he's also gentle and protective, and he loves me. Really loves me. Not the way father loved you. Not ownership, not control. Real love. The kind you always told me to hold out for. I'm going to help people like us. Women who don't know they deserve better. Who are trapped by men who confuse violence with love. And I'm going to do it with him beside me. Acceptance. The knowledge that her mother's death hadn't been in vain, that it had, in some strange way, led to this moment, this life, this future full of possibility. 6 months later, the charity gala was Yuna's idea, a fundraiser for the SEO Foundation, bringing together Seoul's elite to support survivors of trafficking and domestic violence. Dinma had been skeptical at first. Rubbing shoulders with the wealthy made her uncomfortable, but the results spoke for themselves. 3 billion won raised in a single evening, enough to fund their programs for the next 5 years. Dinma stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching the glittering crowd, feeling like an observer from another world. "You're supposed to be circulating." Yuna appeared beside her, gorgeous in a burgundy gown, charming the donors, convincing them to open their wallets. "These heels are torture devices. Have you seen Junho? That's because of you." Junho stood beneath a wisteria arbor, looking up at the sky. He was in a black tuxedo that made him look like something from a dream, elegant and dangerous and entirely hers. "Counting stars?" she asked, approaching. "Satellites." He smiled without looking down. "There are 14 visible tonight, plus 3 planes and what I think might be the International Space Station. Which is not the same thing. Like everything I never knew I wanted. Every moment. Every milestone. Every time you smiled or cried or looked at me like I was worth something. Maybe we keep becoming ourselves forever. Maybe the person I'll be in 10 years is different from who I am now, just like who I am now is different from who I was when we met. Together. But now seems right. Where I first saw you, where I first counted something worth counting, I counted them afterward, trying to figure out when exactly the world shifted. When you went from a stranger to someone I'd burn cities for. The pendant settled against her sternum, warm from his hand. When she faced him again, something had changed. Not dramatically, not visibly, but she felt it. a clicking into place, a rightness. 547 days, she said. What? We're going to be okay, he said. Better than okay. She splits her time between the hospital and the Seo Foundation, which has expanded to include programs in 12 countries. Junho formally retired from all illegal operations, transitioning his network into a legitimate security consulting firm that protects vulnerable populations rather than exploiting them. They married in a small ceremony in Paju, beside Dinma's mother's grave, with Yuna as witness and 57 candles lighting the way. But that's a story for another time. For now, know this. The girl who served coffee with bruises found a man who counted her tears, and together, they built something neither thought possible, a future without fear, a love without conditions, and hope, stubborn, relentless hope, that the broken can become beautiful, that the witnessed can become warriors, and that every bruise tells a story waiting to be rewritten.